I had been at the wheel for what felt like forever, a solid 2 hours at least, gunning the pickup north along the highway toward Harbor City. My wife Lena was attending a 3-day insurance symposium at the Piermont Grand, and while I kept telling myself I was only dropping in to surprise her with dinner, the real reason dug at me. I believed she was stepping out on me. I had believed it for months. Shame, suspicion, anger. All three tangled in my chest until keeping the truck in its lane took effort. For 3 months, every time she had one of these work events, something felt wrong. She would come home late, act aloof, cradle her phone at all hours with a satisfied little smile I did not recognize. She used to be bright and warm, the kind of woman whose enthusiasm could fill a room, but that sparkle had gone cold. She was still striking, with the same hourglass that turned my head when we were teenagers, and the long brown hair that caught sunlight like old copper. Yet some part of her seemed sealed off, as though she had locked the door behind her eyes. Lena and I had been married 14 years. We had 2 kids, Mia at 12 and Evan at 10. We married right after high school, wild with certainty and too young to imagine it could ever change. Time has a way of testing everything. Love can decay from the inside if someone convinces themselves they deserve more than home. I needed the truth. I wanted to walk straight to room 214 and decide whether our marriage was worth saving or already sinking. If I caught her with someone, at least I would know. No more guessing, no more nights of ugly pictures in my head. I reached the Piermont just after 5. The big revolving doors spun like a calm machine. The lobby gleamed. Polished floors, polished smiles. The kind of place that charges too much for parking and not enough for truth. I half expected a guard to stop me, but the joke with big hotels is simple. If you look like you belong, you do. I went to the desk. A fresh-faced clerk in a crisp vest asked what he could do for me. I introduced myself as Nick Dalton, showed ID, and said I was there to see my wife, Lena Dalton, who was at a symposium in room 214. I said she had left a key for me. He looked me over, typed for a moment, and slid a card across the counter with a smile. "Enjoy your stay, Mr. Dalton." My heart thudded as I crossed to the elevators. The ceiling lights felt too bright. My palms were wet. I lied to myself that I was ready for anything. The elevator chimed, carried me to the 2nd floor, and opened to a corridor with tired red carpet. I paused outside 214, slid the card, heard the soft beep, and pushed the door open. Lena sat at the small desk, leafing through a stack of handouts. She turned, eyes widening. "Nick, you scared me." I forced a grin and a casual tone. "Thought I would surprise you. Brought a suit so we could go out to dinner." For a sliver of time, I thought I saw guilt. Then a bright smile spread across her face. "That is sweet. I did not expect you." She stood, smoothed her blouse, and came to me with open arms. She kissed me. My stomach twisted. This was the same mouth I had wanted to curse, and here she was, seeming relieved to see me. "Stay the night," she said, upbeat. "They gave me a decent room. You can help me unwind after those dry seminars." "Sure," I said, playing along. "Could use a break." She kissed me again, fingers light on my shoulders, then stepped back. "Let me grab a quick shower. Then we can figure out dinner." Her voice was airy and natural enough that my certainty wavered. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe she was simply better at acting than I had known. She sauntered into the bathroom, humming. Water hissed to life. I kicked off my shoes and looked around. The room was neat. No sign of a second guest. I exhaled and reminded myself why I had come. I drifted to the dresser where her oversized toiletry bag sat. I told myself I was only looking for aspirin. That was a lie. I wanted proof. I unzipped the bag and saw the usual items. Makeup, hairpins, a small comb. Then I found them. A box of protection. Cold rushed through me. After Evan was born, Lena tried pills that wrecked her hormones, so I got a vasectomy, and that was that. We had never needed anything else. Yet there they were. There was only one reason she would be carrying them. What does a betrayed husband do in that instant? Some confront, Some yell, some leave. I went hot and quiet. I found a small pin in a sewing kit. My mind went blank with rage. I ruined each one so it would not work, then set them back exactly as I had found them. Was it rational? Not even close. It felt like silent payback. If she dared use them with her sideman, let consequences follow. I pocketed the pin and grabbed my phone from the side table. I called my buddy Reed, loyal as bedrock. "Call me in an hour with an emergency," I said. "Make it something at the school that requires me to head home." He agreed without a single question. By the time Lena finished her shower, my plan was in place. I would find a reason to leave before bedtime, give myself space, decide the next move. She came out with damp hair and a towel, gave me a sultry look. "You look tense." I laughed weakly and blamed the drive. She sat beside me and rested a hand on my thigh. "Let me help." She leaned in again, heat and clean steam. A better man might have pulled away. Anger and hurt are terrible fuel. I let her take charge, though my mind screamed the entire time. Every breath felt tainted. I listened for any slip, any name, and heard none. She behaved as if it were real and gentle and ordinary. We dressed and went down to the hotel restaurant. She was cheerful, ordered a petite filet and a glass of rosé. I chose a heavy cut and whiskey, anything that might settle the spin in my gut. Enjoying the conference, I asked, keeping my voice even. "It is fine," she said. "Insurance seminars are dull but necessary." "Sometimes I wonder why you never ask about them." The edge in her voice cut. We talked about the kids, the next mortgage payment, groceries, nothing of weight. The knot in my shoulders refused to ease. Reed called right on time. I stepped away. A burst pipe in the school basement. I matched his story with enough noise to carry. I will head back now. I let the call ride for 2 minutes to sound real. When I returned, Lena watched me with half concern and half something else. "Something wrong?" she asked. I laid it out. "Plumbing trouble at the school. I am the only one who can handle it." She made a show of disappointment. "Tonight." "Come on, Nick." We just sat down. "I do not want to leave," I said, "but if I do not fix it, they will cancel classes. You know how that goes." She sighed and pushed her plate away. "Fine. Go be the hero plumber." She did not push, which told me everything I needed. She would see me out and make her call. We rode the elevator up. The doors opened as another guest stepped out, a tall man with an easy grin. He greeted Lena like an old friend. "Lena." He turned to me with a handshake. "You must be Nick. I am Grant Mercer. I work with your wife. Late 30s, perfect hair, sharp jaw, expensive watch." He smiled like the world owed him and paid on time. The flash in Lena's eyes told me this was no stranger. This was the man tied to her secrets. "Grant," I said, gripping his hand. "Nice to meet you." He stepped off and strolled down the hall. I imagined driving him into the wall, imagined worse, then swallowed it. I walked Lena back to her door, said goodbye, and told her I would call in the morning. Relief touched her face. Maybe fear, maybe excitement. I left, climbed into my truck, and made the lonely run home. As the skyline sank behind me, I wondered whether I was strong enough to see this through. The woman I adored had become a liar, and aside from that box, I had no proof anyone else would accept. I needed evidence, cold and fixed, to show what she was. 2 days later, Lena came home, bright and almost smug, purring about how exhausting the symposium had been. She never mentioned Grant or offered apology. She kissed my cheek and spent the evening clattering through the kitchen like normal. I kept steady for the kids, but fury simmered low. That Saturday, Harbor Mutual hosted a family picnic, as they did every summer, renting a big park with rides and balloon stands and sticky cotton candy. Mia and Evan were thrilled. I dreaded it. The thought of watching Grant swagger around turned my stomach. I put on a smile for the kids anyway. Lena wore a fitted V-neck and jeans that showed her figure. She had preened in the mirror that morning, flipping her hair and glossing her lips with a tiny flourish. "You look nice," I said in a wooden voice. Thanks, she replied. Could use a compliment that sounds real next time. I let it slide. We signed in and grabbed tote bags. Lena was pulled into a circle of coworkers within minutes, laughing too loudly at nothing, while I hovered with the kids near the ring toss. I saw Grant making rounds, shaking hands, looking like a charismatic opportunist. He kept an arm's length from a tall, auburn-haired woman whose poise matched his swagger. The woman approached me with a soft hello. You are Lena's husband, right? Nick Dalton. I am, I said. And you are? Eliza Mercer, she said. Grant's wife. I tried not to stare. We chatted about the weather and the turnout. As we drifted from the crowd, her voice dropped. I know about Lena and Grant. I have known for a couple of months. I froze. My stomach rolled. You knew? She nodded, eyes flicking past my shoulder. I have tried everything to stop it. He denies it when I confront him. I even hired a private investigator. Then you must have proof, I said. I do, she answered with a grim smile. Enough for a clean divorce. My lawyer wants statements, maybe even from Lena, but she is in deep. I nodded, both relieved and sick. Relieved because I was not imagining anything. Sick because our marriage was failing in real. She asked if I wanted to share resources and evidence so both cases would be stronger if things went to court. I agreed without hesitation. She suggested we meet the next day at her house, 26 Hemlock Avenue in Crestwood, since Grant would be out golfing. We exchanged numbers and drifted back to the crowd as if nothing had happened. Lena tossed her head back at every joke Grant made across the lawn. Eliza kept a polite distance from him, face calm in a way that looked practiced. The air felt heavy with what we both knew, but were pretending not to see. The next morning, I told Lena I had errands. She barely glanced up, saying she would be shopping with a friend. Perfect. I dropped the kids with my parents and drove across town to Hemlock Avenue. The street was lined with tidy houses and flower beds. Eliza's place sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, neat porch, roses along the walkway. She opened the door in jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back, eyes tired. Morning, Nick, she said, stepping aside. The living room was warm and carefully decorated. She led me to a small den where a monitor sat on a table. The screen showed a drab motel room, empty for the moment. I have a private investigator on retainer, she said. He set up a camera. Grant books that room whenever he claims he is golfing. Her voice tightened at the word. She offered me a soda. I took it and tried to steady my hands. You think they will meet today? I asked. Likely, she said. He thinks I have stopped checking. We waited and made brittle small talk. She pulled out an accordion folder filled with photos. Lena and Grant entering motels, leaving restaurants, once kissing in a parking garage. There were phone logs and short snippets of audio. My stomach twisted, but at least the fog was gone. I was not imagining any of this. The image on the screen flickered. The door opened. Grant walked in wearing a golf polo. Lena followed, hair pinned up, blouse loose at the collar. They kissed like teenagers and tore at each other's clothes. Within moments, they were naked. The camera caught more than I wanted to see. I clenched my fists until my nails bit my palms. I watched for 2 minutes and then looked away. That is enough, I said. Eliza was pale. Same here. She shut the feed. I will have the PI burn a disc. Thank you, I said, keeping my voice as level as I could. We spent the next hour laying out a plan. Eliza would share copies of her evidence. I would share anything I gathered. If either spouse fought the divorce, we would be ready. When the talk wound down, she asked if I wanted a break in the backyard. She kept coy. I followed her out to stone paths and 3 small ponds edged with ferns. Fish in bright colors slid beneath the surface. It was strange to stand there talking about filters and pumps while the world I knew came apart, but the quiet helped. I told her about plumbing work, and she pointed out the piping and the skimmers. For a few minutes, we spoke to each other like people unhooked from catastrophe. Over the next weeks, I learned Lena's routine in ugly detail. When I heard water running at home, I would check the toiletry bag. Each time there were fresh condoms. I kept the pin handy and ruined them, setting them back precisely. She moved through the house with a new arrogance. She accused me of being small-minded and ungrateful. It felt like she enjoyed the twin lives she was living. Mother at home, someone else when she slipped away. One Friday after the kids went to bed, I confronted her in the living room. "We need to talk about your job," I said. She did not mute the reality show. "We already talked." "What is your problem?" "Quit Harbor Mutual," I said. "I cannot stand that place or Grant Mercer. He is not good for you." She glanced over with a mocking snort. "You are obsessed. Grant is a co-worker." "I am not quitting because you are insecure." "It is not insecurity. I see you around him." She stood and clicked off the TV. "Grow up, Nick. Stop blaming me for your jealousy. I am not doing this again." She brushed past me and went upstairs, while my anger sat burning in the dark. Eliza and I fell into a rhythm of exchanging updates. My kids called her the fish lady and loved visiting to see the ponds. On nights when Lena and Grant met up, the kids and I would be at Eliza's house watching movies or feeding the koi. Eliza filed for divorce first. Grant fought, but the evidence was a wall he could not climb. He threatened lawsuits about privacy, and her attorney cut the threats to pieces. Lena seemed either oblivious or too proud to admit the danger. She never asked where I went at night. Maybe guilt froze her questions. Maybe she did not care. Then one evening, she made an announcement at the kitchen table, idly circling her wine. "I am stressed. I am taking some time off and visiting my sister Nora for a few days, maybe a week. Thought you would enjoy the break. You have been moody." My jaw tightened. She made it sound like a favor. "When are you leaving?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning. Nora has room." "I want to clear my head." She held my eyes as if daring me to argue. I did not. I told her to have a nice time and walked away, thinking about the real reason for the trip. I checked her purse. There were receipts from a family planning clinic. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. The pin. The ruined condoms. Was she pregnant? By Grant. I needed to know. The next day, I went to the clinic and asked questions. Most places turned me away, but this one let me sign a consent form after I proved I was her husband. I acted like I was just trying to be helpful. The receptionist checked a file and slid a page to me. I signed. Friday at 11, it read. The appointment time stared up like a siren. There would be no gentle exit. If she intended to erase what she had done, I would not be a quiet spectator. I drove 3 hours to Nora's house. Lena had arrived the night before. Nora was married to a big man named Brent, a former foreman who could probably lift me with one hand. The air went stiff the moment I stepped inside. Lena folded her arms. "What are you doing here?" "Thought I would visit?" I said with a small smile. "The kids are with my parents. Figured I would grab time off while you were on vacation too." Nora flicked a worried look at Brent, who tried a friendly grin that did not reach his eyes. "Sure, more the merrier," he said. Lena stared. "I did not invite you." "I am here anyway," I said, and let the silence expand. I did not leave. The next morning, Brent invited me fishing with his buddy who had a boat. I said maybe, then refused at the truck. He got red-faced and argued. I folded my arms and stayed behind. He and his buddy left, still fuming. Inside, Nora made calls. Lena told me to go do something else. We have errands. I poured coffee and took my time. When she set her phone down and stepped out of sight, I turned it off and ignored the call waiting chimes that started as Brent tried to reach her. Nora hissed into her own phone, furious, clearly trying to reschedule something or warn someone they would be late. I blocked every move they tried. By mid-afternoon, Brent came back looking like he had yelled into the wind all day. Nora snapped at him for not getting me on that boat. Lena hovered, tense and silent. That evening, I laid down my terms in Nora's kitchen. "You are done at Harbor Mutual," I said. "Either quit or I will file for divorce." She glared at me, lip curled. "Shut up. I am not quitting and you cannot bully me." I took a breath, opened a manila folder, and set divorce papers on the table. Sign or do not. If you refuse, I file anyway. She stared at the papers, then snarled. You cannot divorce me for not quitting my job. That is not grounds for anything. Adultery is, I said, and I spread photos on the table. Lena and Grant leaving motels, half-dressed, arms slung around each other. The color drained from her face. You creep. You were spying on me. She reached for the photos. I caught her wrist. How else was I supposed to get the truth? You made a fool of me, she said, voice shaking. You set me up like a pervert. You set yourself up when you let him into your bed. Footsteps pounded down the hall. Nora and Brent rushed in. Nora gasped when she saw the pictures. Lena shook, eyes darting between the photos and me. My phone buzzed. My dad was calling to say he had arrived with a truckload of Lena's belongings from the house. I ended the call. Lena stared at me with wet eyes. What did you do? I changed the locks and packed your things, I said. If you need anything else, send a list. Nora tried to defend her sister. I held up an envelope. Half the money from our accounts is in here. It is yours. I signed over the title of your car too. That is yours. As for the kids, you will see them once a week, and maybe one overnight a month after you sign a sworn statement about the affair. Her scream filled the kitchen. You had no right. I set the small pin beside the envelope. I have been punching holes in your condoms for 2 months. You went through almost 50 in 2 weeks. Now you are pregnant with his child, or you were, and you planned to take care of it on Friday. She broke. Tears streaked her face. You are insane. You started this, I said. Brent looked horrified. Nora wrapped her arms around Lena. I walked out and did not turn back. Dad waited at the curb with the truck idling. We carried boxes to the porch until the entryway was full. I felt calm for the first time in months. This was the end. In the weeks that followed, Harbor Mutual fired both Lena and Grant. Office gossip raced faster than any memo, especially after Eliza's lawyer sent letters. Lena refused to sign affidavits, but it did not matter. The evidence was more than enough. She moved in with Nora. People said Grant covered some of her expenses, maybe out of guilt, maybe because the pregnancy complicated his conscience. I stopped paying attention. Eliza finalized her divorce in record time. She got the house, investments, and support. Grant fought like a cornered animal, but her lawyer dismantled him piece by piece until there was nothing left for him to cling to but bitterness. My own divorce from Lena went through 4 months later. She didn't even bother contesting it. She must have realized resistance would only make things uglier. Soon after, she and Grant vanished to a new city, somewhere in Nebraska, I heard, maybe Omaha, where he'd landed a low-tier job in another firm. That suited me fine. The kids stayed with me. They didn't seem to miss her much, which told me more than any therapist ever could. They'd always sensed her distance, the faint air of superiority she carried around like perfume. For a while, life grew quiet again. I kept working, coached Evan's Little League games, helped Mia with her art projects. The house felt lighter. But then, word trickled back. Grant had disappeared. No notice, no forwarding address. Some said he'd been jumped outside a bar, left with broken ribs and worse. Others whispered about debts. Either way, he was gone. Lena, left without a job or a man, drifted back to Nora's. The story of her fall became neighborhood gossip. People said she and her sister fought constantly, blaming each other for everything. I didn't bother to confirm. For me, it was over. Meanwhile, Eliza and I stayed in touch. At first, it was strictly practical updates about paperwork, lawyers, the slow churn of the courts, but over time the tone softened. We'd both been burned, both seen too much deceit to crave excitement. What we wanted was steadiness. My kids adored her from the start. She had patience, a gentle humor, and those koi ponds that fascinated them endlessly. Sundays turned into visits, visits into dinners, and dinners into quiet evenings that ended with laughter instead of shouting. 3 months after the final papers were signed, we started talking about marriage. We'd weathered storms and knew how fragile trust could be, but something in the calm between us felt real. Eliza sold her small design business and used part of the settlement to buy a villa out near the lake, 6 bedrooms, a broad backyard, and a pool where the kids spent whole afternoons cannonballing into the water. She surprised me one evening by unlocking the garage and revealing a gleaming car under a tarp. A silver Jaguar XK 140, almost identical to the one I'd been forced to sell years earlier when Lena wanted to upgrade to something practical. Eliza had tracked it down herself. When I saw it, bright and perfect under the light, I felt something inside my chest loosen for the first time in years. Life steadied. The kids flourished. I worked, came home, and found peace waiting instead of suspicion. As for Lena, she slipped further into obscurity. Nora's husband, Brent, took a job on the Alaskan pipeline and mailed divorce papers from Anchorage. The sisters were left to fend for themselves in that cramped house on Hemlock Avenue, surrounded by ghosts of better days. Rumor had it they lived on Nora's dwindling savings and occasional help from a church pantry. People said Lena still blamed me, still told anyone who'd listen that I had ruined her life. Maybe she was right, but I slept fine knowing I'd only handed her the mirror she'd spent years avoiding. Occasionally her name would flash across my phone unknown numbers, late-night calls, but I ignored them. Then, one autumn evening, a voicemail came through that I listened to by accident. Her voice was ragged, pleading. She said she was sorry, that she missed the kids, that she wanted to see them. She swore she'd changed. I let the message play out, then deleted it. When she called again, I picked up long enough to tell her the only way I'd consider anything was if she signed a written admission of what she'd done, notarized and dated. She started crying, then cursing, spitting venom until the line went dead. I blocked the number afterward and never heard from her again. Eliza and I married that winter in a small ceremony by the koi ponds. Snow fell lightly, the kids grinning beside us, our breath fogging the cold air. We toasted with cider instead of champagne and ended the night feeding the fish beneath the pale moon. It wasn't grand, but it was honest. Every year since, we've celebrated by sitting out by the water, letting the koi brush the surface, while the kids now nearly grown trade stories and jokes. There are no secrets here, no locked phones or hidden schedules. Just peace. Sometimes, on quiet mornings, I catch my reflection in the kitchen window and think about the man who drove 2 hours up a highway chasing a suspicion. I barely recognize him. He was furious, desperate, drowning in betrayal. The man I am now just breathes. Revenge, in the end, wasn't about violence or ruin. It was about truth raw, cold, and final. And once I had that, the rest of my life began.